Good evening and welcome to the Cheese Room Podcast YouTube channel. My name is John, and tonight we are here to talk about Tottenham being back and the Cheese Room is back. It's been a long 2 weeks since that defeat of Wolves. And joining me to discuss tomorrow's game against Crystal Palace, I'm going to start off bottom right. He's muted currently. Jack in New York, how are you, mate?
Doing okay. It has been a while since Spurs have played, but it's not one of those circumstances where we're post-win, we're actually post-defeat. So we haven't had the typical kind of Twitter withdrawal of Ange Ball. It's actually been more debate and people tearing apart each other as per usual after a defeat. So looking forward to it. Crystal Palace, definitely a team that I have a slight soft spot for, so I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. We will get into all of that. And I know you and HG like to have these long debates as well. So this is going to be a really cracking show. If we got two men that can talk for their respective countries, Austria and the USA, it's you two. So HG, how are you, mate?
Fine.
What? Sorry, I've got a dog down here and he's found something. He's eating it. I'll be back.
Good.
Fine. So now HG is going to be in one-word answers the rest of the show. I see.
Yeah.
Oh, cough. Yes. I'm all right. I'm all right. Another week is done. It's getting warmer. The in-laws are visiting in 3 weeks. But otherwise, well, they did well because they picked a week when Spurs aren't playing. So I actually have to be with them. But yeah, it's all good. I like them really.
That's nice.
He found a pen and has chewed it. So yes, we've got a dog now, and everyone's out, so the dog's in with me. And Jack H, who will be sort of co-hosting me tonight because I'm going to have to disappear at certain points due to family and dog commitments. How are you, mate?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm sitting here in North Carolina waiting for the rains to come in. Hope that it's not going to be so heavy that it washes my game out tomorrow. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I feel pretty happy about being back on the show. I just can't figure out what it is. HG, there's something different about tonight's show. I can't quite place what is it that is different about tonight. There's someone from England on the show. That's what it is.
There you go.
So you two have kept the show going in recent weeks, and despite the fact the family's out, my wife's had a bit of a meltdown about that she'll have to get the youngest to bed when she gets home after a long day. So I have said I will skip out to help with that. I knew I had to make it on. We are a little bit short, which is why we've been struggling to put some shows out recently. And also, it's been a bit depressing, hasn't it, after that Wolves defeat? Yeah, but let's get on with it. So, Crystal Palace are visiting the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium under their new manager, Austrian Oliver Glasner, who I have to say, I was very shocked when I found out how old he is, HG. I assume you know.
He's what, late 40s, maybe early 50s?
49.
Yeah. So
he's younger than Jack and just only a couple of years older than me.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like Andy Muller in that shot. But, yes. Yeah, he's not the oldest. I mean, weirdly enough, I think when I commentated, I used to commentate on him as a player, which is just weird to think that he was like mid-30s at that point. But he's done all right. He's definitely the best Austrian coach. So that doesn't really say much, does it? But he's pretty good.
Who are we comparing him to? We've got Little Rabbit Hutch Man.
I think Hasenhüttl's probably the next one. I mean, Rangnick
probably was Matthias Jaisla until he took the Saudi money and decided
is that where he is now? I'd forgotten all about him because he's gone to Saudi.
I thought he was quite good actually for a period. But he took the Saudi money and threw himself into irrelevancy. So maybe he'll come up again at some stage.
No politics in this show. So as we know, they
or is there?
Well, Davo's not here. Move along. This is Palace's recent run. What have you got now? You got a coat hanger. Brilliant. Obviously, they had a very good 3-0 win last week. Jack Flatcap, helped by Brownhill getting himself sent off. Have you watched any of that game?
I watched like 30 minutes of it to see the quote unquote managerial bounce. And then I feel like the moment that I turned off the red card had happened, all the good stuff had happened. And even then, when I sort of was flipping back and forth between some of the games, deciding which one was the good one on that sort of weekend, I felt like I was just feeling, every time I tuned into the Palace game, it just wasn't really all that interesting, despite them being up by one player. And just, I don't know, like it didn't look to be that convincing of a 3-0 win. I didn't watch much of it, but when I did tune in, it looked pretty unconvincing, or they looked a bit dead at times, the Palace team. But perhaps they're just getting used to things. But yeah, I would say I didn't watch much of it, but I missed all the good parts, clearly.
HG, was this pretty typical of the sort of formations that Glasner played in Germany?
Well, for Eintracht, yes. He did like to play 3 at the back, and certainly the season they won the Europa League, they had Kostic as that left wing back, and they had, it wasn't a massively great team, but they had good players who made differences at vital moments. But so he played 3 at the back there. I guess I'm not too surprised to see it, but Joel Ward is not really a centre back, so it's a bit interesting to see what he's doing. But and that front 3, like Edouard's not really an attacking midfielder, so they'll look to probably change something there, I guess, for tomorrow's game. But I think he'll stick with that to get the points he needs before maybe reevaluating things in the summer.
Yeah, so apparently Eze and Will Hughes are both back in the squad, and Joachim Andersen is fit to play, which is a shame. I know that Gehi is injured, and obviously Elise is injured. We don't know whether Eze will start or not, but there's obviously a good chance he's a dangerous player from the bench. Jack Hoyle, I've just got this horrible feeling Edouard or Ayew or Mateta, one of those 3 is going to come up with an annoying goal in a horrible 1-0 defeat or something stupid, even though Palace have got a terrible record at Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing. I put up Adrian's comment earlier. Crystal Palace has not had any success against Spurs through many, many, many years. So that does give you some hope, although I've never quite understood that, given that so much of the players are in turnover, that you shouldn't have that, that much of a dominance. But no, Crystal Palace is getting a little bit healthier. Obviously, if they have Eze come in, even if he's off the bench, that certainly helps. Their back line is decimated pretty much. I mean, to your point, HG Joel Ward's not really a center back. They only have 2 or 3 fit center backs at this point. Chris Richards is far underrated. I think he's a fantastic player. I'm really interested to watch him play. I haven't seen him play in a while, not in an American shirt. So, but I'm excited about him because I think he's a good player. So I'm looking forward to the matchup. But theoretically, regardless of what lineup we put out there, like I said against Wolves, at home we should have enough to beat this team because that's just not a lot of offensive firepower. I mean, I hear what you're saying about Ayew and Edouard, but they're not people who should strike fear into your heart, quite frankly. So if we lose, I think it'll be more ineptitude rather than Palace coming out and having a blinder.
So that Cap, what do you see the dangers of Palace under Glasner being for us?
Probably whether Eze is included in this team or not. I think Elise or Eze have been the source of goals and have been the source of wins for them this season. Mateta, if I can remember correctly, I mean, he doesn't score many goals for Palace, but I think he has been playing slightly better, or probably might be in his best run in this Palace team. I'd say kind of similar to Jordan Ayew, someone who I used to make fun of actually a lot of years ago. I think has actually gotten weirdly a bit better kind of in the last season or two. But I agree with the other Jack. I mean, if we're really being serious, like this shouldn't actually be that much of a threat to a Spurs team. I'm being pretty overly complimentary of some of these players, and this team in general is probably barely going to survive relegation, even with the new managerial bounce of Oliver Glasner. I'd say maybe just certain players probably are playing for their careers or kind of for their future. So there's that to consider, right? So then certain levels are kind of raised, or even they just start to try even more than they already would. Maybe some of these Palace players, but I don't know. They already know they're in a relegation battle. So I'm assuming that they won't make it easy on us, but I agree with the other Jack on everything you said.
The thing is, like, I didn't watch it really with intent, but I did have it on kind of in the background of the game last week, and Palace started the game pretty well, and it was actually, they were more dominant when it was 11 versus 11. When Burnley had the player sent off, Burnley obviously retreated a little bit and tried to make it difficult, and it wasn't until, I think, 70 minutes that Palace got one from a set piece. That is a cute dog, John. That is a cute dog. He just wants to be part of the show.
He's a pest, is what he is.
He's a pest.
But he's cute.
He is very cute. You can't knock that. And so they got 3, I think, pretty quickly. Mateta's goal was a penalty, which seems to be his main source of getting anywhere near the score sheet. So yeah, the second goal was a bit different, but I think there's a guy on Twitter that probably most of us know, who's a big Palace fan, and he talked about how it was just exciting to see Palace still attacking even though they were in the lead. They didn't really mind that 3-0 looked great and 3 points are great, but it was almost more exciting for them that they went 1-0 up and continued to attack and weren't trying to hang on to it. And so 3-0 looks amazing, but being 3 goals better than Burnley, and we've done that this season. This will be the first real test of what Glasner can do, I think, when he takes them to Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at these stats from Ultra Analyst, they absolutely wiped the floor with Burnley, but with Brownhill getting sent off, it was obviously going to skew it anyway. But it's very hard to judge it based on that game. And he'd only been there a couple of days, hadn't he? So I guess time will tell and it'll probably be next season before we see the real Glasner team. Do you think he'll stay if they were to get relegated? I don't think they will get relegated, HG, but if they were, do you think he'd stay?
I mean, now that he's got the job, yes. I don't think they would blame him if they were to get relegated. I just feel like if I was him, I probably wouldn't have taken it for that reason, that if they get relegated, do I really want to be around? Does he really want to do a championship slog? Even with parachute payments and the fact that it, in theory, should be easy to get back up. And if you look at the championship now, I think the 3 relegated teams from last season are right at the top of things. So, yeah, I guess he would. I think it would be good of him to do so if he's taking the job to stay on. But yeah, I don't know. I think I said last week I wouldn't have taken it if I were him. It was kind of a weird time to do it, but you only have to be better than one team, right? Because Burnley and Sheffield United are almost certainly down. So the idea is okay, you get them. I mean, he's playing a back 5 with 2 fullbacks that don't really want to get forward. He's asking quite a bit from the front 3 and maybe Wharton to get up in support. But it will pick up. They will. I mean, they're 13th there. I know it's only they're not that far from relegation, but you'd expect them to get the points that they would need. Just hopefully not against Spurs.
Jack Hoyle, who do you reckon is going to go? If we accept probably it's going to be Burnley and Sheffield United, who is the third team do you think that will join them? Bearing in mind, Forest and Everton have still got points possibly.
Yeah, I say that's the problem, because if Nottingham Forest take a points deduction, I think that Luton with a game in hand can catch them. I mean, Luton is playing the best football of anyone at the bottom of that table right now. They're overmatched sometimes in terms of just quality at each position. But I'm rooting for Luton to stay up. I don't have any. I don't whether Brentford. I can't imagine Brentford goes down. But if Tony is not going to score goals, then that's going to be a problem for them. Everton, and Nottingham Forest are exposed because they could both take additional points deduction. I don't know how Nottingham Forest doesn't. I mean, they've set the precedent now. They admit themselves that they're over the allowable losses, and so they're trying to make an argument. That they're trying to make a technical argument to get us the smallest potential penalty, but they're going to take a points deduction. So I'll say I'll put my money on Nottingham Forest, partly because I'd rather see Luton stay up, but also because I don't think they're probably going to take a 6-point deduction, and that might be enough to put them down.
Flat cap.
Was the question on whether Palace will survive? Sorry.
Yeah, or who goes down?
Who goes down with Sheffield and Burnley?
Sorry. I mean, I think Luton Town I don't see going down personally, but it's one of those weird ones where it feels like every time we watch them, they win, or like they're one of the most entertaining teams of this Premier League, yet they do find themselves in the relegation, on the wrong side of the line there. It's really hard. I'd say the current 3 do go down, but I'd be really surprised just because Luton Town have given everybody a good game this season for the most part. So I figured they would probably find a way to survive. But where they are 4 points behind teams that probably shouldn't go down, it's really hard. It's really hard. So I'd just say the current 3, just to be safe.
HG?
I mean, it's weird because all of them have reasons for staying up. It's actually kind of interesting how a lot of them have goal scorers. Like Forest have Awani, who seems to score regularly when he's fit. Brentford have got Tony. Bournemouth have got Solanke. Palace don't have that striker, but they're also, at the top of that bunch right now. So, I want to say Fulham are going to drop, but they're so far ahead that I don't think that's going to happen. But they would be the team where I'm like, they could go on a run of losing a lot of games. They don't really have a striker, but their goal difference isn't that bad. So I guess logically, if we think that Luton are going to stay up, then Forest would be the next because, the points deduction and Awani not being that fit that often might be what puts them down. But it's going to be really close. It may even come to goal difference this year, which I don't think is done for a long time.
Yeah, I think that those point deductions for both them and Everton. I was listening to Martin Lipton on the Spurs show earlier, and he was saying he thinks Everton will get another 3 points as their separate ban. I think Forest, he said 4 to 6 was his guess. So I don't know where he got this from. Obviously, he's a journalist, so has a bit of insight. But that was quite an interesting view. And if they were to lose 6 points, like you say, they're behind Luton, who've got a game in hand. I mean, yeah, tough one. It seemed like Nuno really got them going to begin with, but now they have been struggling. Although they do come to Spurs in a few weeks, so you never know.
Dr. Tottenham will see you now.
Doctor, yeah, that's exactly right.
Exactly, yeah. HG, Jack's come up with this cracking slide.
Well, all right.
Talking of Dr. Tottenham, Crystal Palace have got 195 corners without a goal.
I think I even read today that Spurs are like the 4th worst when it comes to conceding chances from corners.
Yes, like that is correct.
Yeah, so
10.
We all know what's happening, doesn't it?
Yes.
So go on, Jack.
Yes, you are correct in terms of expected goals to concede. We are 4th worst, and in actual conceded, I think we're about the same spot. That is correct.
Oh boy.
So
yeah,
we've got an issue with conceding.
So Joel Ward is going to get the winner after like 54 minutes from a corner. No, I can't believe that. I saw someone put up in the comments, our record against Palace is pretty good. The one game that we all remember them losing was Nuno time, and we had Tanganga at the back, and that was, I think, Emerson Royal's first game. There were lots of reasons to remember that as being negative. But Palace, they don't tend to show up against us. I'm not going to say this, I'm going to jinx it, but it's like we didn't play well at Palace in October, but we still beat them. I just have a feeling that we really should, even with Glasner, we should do this one.
I think you're right. The first, it's only his second game, so he hasn't had a chance to put his stamp on the team yet properly. Although we saw Ange managed to do quite well early on. But yeah, you look at the head-to-head, and we're well ahead of Palace. They are due one, you could say, but we really need a performance. Did you hear that? We really... Yeah, he's in the garden. We really need a performance. Oh, that was Jack. I'm guessing a jet plane went past your house. We really need a performance after that awful Wolves game. And I'm pretty hopeful and confident that we just need a fast start, I think, don't we, Jack H?
Yeah, this is a game that with 2 weeks off, you hope there's been enough time for get over a few, we got at least one player back, lost another one, I guess. We need to talk about who we think is going to come into the side. But as I said, this is a game that a team shooting for Champions League spots cannot lose. You cannot lose to Palace at home at this point. If you do, then you accept your fate as potentially playing in the Conference League or something next year, or out of Europe altogether. But these are games that you just 3 points is the only option.
Yeah, so I mean, if we have a look, HG, at the table, we are 5 points off Villa with obviously the Chelsea game in hand, which is not going to be an easy game at any time for us, even under, even with their season, we know it's not going to be an easy game for us going to the Bridge. How do you see this planning out?
Like the rest of the season?
With us against Villa, yeah.
I mean, I think I've said before on shows, we can't afford to lose against Villa when we play them in next week. If we can win there, that would be amazing. But we can't afford to lose. But I guess like it is cliche time. Like Spurs haven't played well. They've got, I guess, decent results. But I think I read today that it's, they only had one win in February out of the 3 games. So it was like one win in February, and that was a last-minute winner against Brighton. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, but we also conceded a last-minute equaliser against Everton. Like it was, it could have been 0 wins. It could have been 2 wins quite easily. But we haven't played well in a while. And that is the concerning thing. It's not really about anything else. Like results are great afterwards, but you'd have to think that performances are a decent indicator of whether you're going to win. If we don't show up against Palace, we probably won't win. We have to be a threat, and I guess with our injuries right now, that's not going to be that easy.
Yeah, flat cap. What do you reckon?
I understand what you guys are saying, that these are vital wins, and this game upcoming, to Crystal Palace and Aston Villa are sort of, to a degree, kind of season defining for whether we take ourselves seriously in this top 4 race. I'd say Aston Villa and Spurs are kind of in this bracket right now. Maybe Man United, if you want to include them, if you want to be generous, but like these teams that I can't really decide what they really are, like which one is the top 4 candidate, which one is more kind of in the Europa League bracket. It's really hard to tell, kind of. And I'd say Aston Villa of recent have looked more convincing, but let's not kid ourselves. I think like a month or 2 ago, kind of around the Christmas period, they were losing some games. Like they lost to Sheffield United at home, like the moment that they had an opportunity to take sort of the reins of the Premier League, and they bottled it and ended up kind of dropping even more points afterwards. So you'd say that kind of Man United, Spurs, I'd say Aston Villa are all sort of teams that I'm very confused which one is actually going to get inside that top 4. And this is a must win for us no matter what. And I'd say the Aston Villa game as well is a must win, like HG said.
Yeah, Jack Hoyle, looking at those fixtures, we've probably got the best chance to get a bit of a head steam up. I mean, you would have said that before Wolves as well, but we've obviously got Palace. Villa's going to be a toughie. Fulham won't be easy. No, I mean, none of obviously West Ham, it's their cup final, and it'll be a night game. But before we've got that tough April run, we've got a good chance to get a bit of momentum, hopefully.
Yeah. Out of this weekend, I mean, it really, the ideal situation is you've got a game in hand and 6 points on United at the end of the weekend. That's what you would be putting your money on. And to your point, you're gonna have to bank points here. Of course, our history is that we lose to who we shouldn't, and we beat who we should a lot of the time. But I agree. This is a run with a draw at Aston Villa is doable. That's not the end of the world, but you can't lose, as HG said. Fulham away and Luton at home are 6-pointers that you just have to take at this point, because West Ham away is, what can happen there. So Forest, Newcastle away is not great, but Forest at home is another game you should win before you get into that horrible run. That somewhere in there, obviously that Chelsea game is going to get rescheduled. So you'd like to think that those last 2 games of the year against teams that are already relegated give you a real heads up in this contest. But if you screw that run up, you could be so far out that it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, we're also very, very likely to have the Man City game rearranged because that's FA Cup semi-final weekend.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we expect them to progress to the semi-final. So we're going to end up with Chelsea, West Ham, and City as all midweek games at some point. We know when West Ham is, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I see King's comment here. I mean, 68 points is not that bad a shout, because if you just take our points per game average and take it to the end of the year, we wind up at 71. I think is right, if I'm not mistaken. So, 68, 71, but if you get on a little bit of a run, you bank some points, you could get into the mid 70s, which would be the best we've had in many years.
Yeah. I mean, what we're looking at, we're 13 games to go. 8 wins would be 24 points. Is that a bit ambitious? This gets us to the 71-point mark, which is, normally would get you into top 4.
I feel like, can you go back to the slide that showed the games?
Yeah.
Right. Because even though I know that we forget those last 2 games at the end of the season, right? Because it's almost like they're the games that we want to have now. Like we want to get the cushion really before we get going. But the home games like Palace, Luton, Forest, Burnley. That's 4 that you should win, right? Obviously, Man City and Arsenal won't be easy, but that's 4 you should win. If you can pick up 2 or 3 wins away, certainly you'd look at Fulham, think, okay, that's possible. But yeah, Sheffield United is possible. So do you know what I mean? Like it's maybe one unexpected win should really get us there. Because I feel like even if we won 7 and lost 6, that would, the 21 points is not a bad thing to go with. So I think with Spurs, it's always about, like, we tend to throw away draws. Like last year, we threw away a draw at Liverpool. We end up losing out on the Conference League because of it. Or like we go for a win against Bournemouth, we end up losing that game and losing that point as well. It just feels like Spurs need to be like, if a point is available, you take it and you move on. There's no point harping on about lost opportunities. Like West Ham won't be easy, Newcastle won't be easy. Like we understand all of this, but it's the business end of the season. It's not as if those games for Man United and Villa are going to be easy either. Like if you look at the final 2 games for all of them. Like, obviously, you'd want Burnley and Sheffield United. You wouldn't want Liverpool chasing the title. You wouldn't want Arsenal chasing the title, most likely. Right? I mean, I don't want Arsenal to be out of it by then, but still, there's a good chance they'll be there or thereabouts. So you just have to, it is like game at a time. As Jack said, like, if things go well this weekend, Villa don't win at Luton, United will clearly lose at City, and we might get some points. We might gain points on both of them. And then going into the following week, a draw kind of keeps things level. And right now, given how Man United are, Everton could go there and win. It's really crazy to look at it because Villa are playing the best of the 3. I've no doubt about that. They're more likely to get what they need, but Spurs are more likely to get better. And United, with their injuries, they might struggle to maintain the form they've had in the last month or so that's got them to where they are.
Sorry, the heavens have absolutely opened here, and I've got the door open for the dog, so it might be a bit noisy. Flat Cat, are we writing United off?
I said generously include them. I don't know. Like, they could finish above us. Like, we could completely capitulate, but I don't really see that happening. I mean, Man United are probably going to be on our coattails, but I don't see them passing us or passing Villa for sure. Definitely not passing Villa. So yeah, I don't think they're going to finish inside the top 4, but there is a small chance they could finish ahead of us. I mean, we haven't been that convincing of late.
Yeah. Oh, you look confused, HG.
No, it's just
you just concentrate.
Sorry.
Okay, fine. Let's quickly go back to the Palace game. Jack, you put this slide in there. Do you want to talk about this?
Well, I mean, as long as we're on the topic of what we can do, the reality is that this is just a stat, but you clearly can see from this table, even if you can't see the numbers, that this season we have a much higher expected goals against. So this is judging the quality of your chances. This comes from Jack Pitt-Brooks' article in The Athletic that was posted today, I think. And just talking about how in the first 10 games, we were 6th best in the league at about 1.25 goals expected against us. And then now we're all the way up to 1.74, worst it's been in 8 seasons. And that's because we've been on a run closer to 2 for quite a while. And really, we all know everything broke in that Chelsea game, and it's been just trying to recover from there. And if you expected goals for, expected goals against is not perfect, but if you actually stack the teams up in those categories, the people at the top are who you think. I mean, Arsenal is the best in the league. City's the 2nd best in the league for expected goals against. So that tells you it's not permanent. It's not guaranteed of what's going to happen, but it's certainly very indicative. We're 7th from bottom at this stat right now. Has been a little bit better last couple of games, but the reality is we give up a lot of chances. And if it weren't for Vicario, who is statistically the best shot stopper in the Premier League, we could be much further down the table. So this is the area that has to be worked on. I think we all know that it's the chances that are being created is part of the problem here. And we're giving up way too many per game. And again, in the Premier League, unlike a lot of leagues, you give up chances to even teams like Burnley, and they've got good enough players to finish. And we've just really slacked off on this the chance that we're giving up way too many chances. And so hopefully maybe this weekend will be the start of, after 2 weeks, to work on your communication, your systems, your build-up play, your pressing signals, all that sort of stuff. I'd really love to see a complete performance against a team that you should beat.
Yeah, I mean, team news is that Destiny Udogie should be back. Hopefully, Porro is still out for another week, but at least I think against Wolves, obviously we missed Porro and Udogie. Udogie, how many times he's covered? Everyone goes on about Van de Ven, he's covering at the back, but Destiny's covered us many times in many games this season. I think we really did miss the pace of both him and Porro last week. Jack, are we assuming Destiny for Davis and Emerson sticks at right back?
That's what I'd prefer. I could see why some people want to shoehorn in Dragusin in some sort of way so we can give him minutes and give him game time. But for me personally, I like Emerson. I understand he gets a lot of slack from a lot of fans for various reasons, but I think he has, on plenty of occasions, both kind of towards the tail end of last season and at stages this season, he has proven to be a good squad player, a guy that can step up and sort of just do a job for you when needed. Most often pretty defensively reliable. And I would say his last game, as a person who likes to defend Emerson and someone who's usually on his side, I'd say his last game was definitely not his best performance and probably one of his worst in a while. But compare that to some of his better performances that we have seen of recent and in general, like I said, towards the tail end of last season, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say it was a bad day at the office for him. I'd like to keep him at right back, give him kind of that faith that I think he deserves personally. But it wasn't a good display from him last time out against Wolves, certainly.
HG?
What's the question?
Emerson staying right back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ange's going to change it, and I don't think we see it. Like, who else is going to do it? You might put a midfielder there and say, you know what, I want to control the ball better. I want, like maybe you'd consider putting Sarr there or even Skip. Although I don't really want that, but you'd consider it because the whole point of it is that you keep someone who can actually do something with the ball. Porro's quality is actually creating stuff, and we just don't have something. We don't have anyone who can really do that. So it would be a bodge job to try and put someone else in. You put Dragus in there. He's never played as an inverted fullback in his life. I don't think he's ever been a creative central defender in his life. It would be a ridiculous thing to put him there and then ask him to play Ange ball. So I think we will stick to what I guess to me the question is, can we be better at what we want to do? Because I don't feel like we have masses of options unless you're looking at the academy. There's someone who you think can come in and do it, and I don't think there's anyone there either. It'll be the same 18, 20 players we've seen all season.
Yeah, I mean, with the ball as well, you'd expect Jack Hoyle that Maddison, hopefully he's had another couple of weeks of training, will be a bit more up to speed, and Bentancur hopefully. Who do you think starts, Bentancur or Basuma in the not six role, as Ange doesn't like to shoehorn him as a six, but it is a six, isn't it?
If you assume that Porro comes in at right back, which again I admire Porro and I like him in many respects. He seems like an interesting person and all that sort of stuff. It is painful to watch him in the system because again, there's just no threat from that side at all. He's worked hard. He's done far better than I thought he would ever have done, but it is difficult. So the only thing that makes sense to not put him there, I think you mentioned HG, is if you put Sarr at right back and then you bring Bentancur into the 8th with Basuma playing the 6 and of course Maddison up on the left. Assuming that that's not what happens and Sarr is going to start, the question of Bentancur versus Basuma, I know that Basuma is best suited to that position. He hasn't played particularly well, obviously, hasn't played much and hasn't played particularly well since he came back. I still think he's our best 6 in that role, and I'd like to see him stay there, and that gives you Bentancur as a sub to bring on to change things up. So that's probably the way I'd go. But I would be fine with Bentancur at the 6. I think he can do the job. Quite frankly, I'm fine either way.
HG, Bentancur, Basuma
as the 6
or both.
I mean, the thing is, it's Palace at home. You want your better ball players there. Like, this is the type of game where you say, you know what, maybe we dispense with Sarr as that kind of covering 8 who covers for him. Porro's going forward. Porro's not on the pitch. He won't be playing, and he's not going to need to cover the Emerson's. You'd rather that Emerson kind of stayed where he was and allowed an 8 to get further forward. So I think for this one, I'd play both. When it comes to which one I think is better, yeah, like at the start of the season, Bissouma looked incredible. Since Luton, he hasn't. Bentancur has never really played that 6 for Spurs. Looked great first game back, got crocked against Villa, and since then hasn't really been the same. So it's tough to say. Like you'd think that Bissouma, having had more experience, is the better of the two. But I say this every time. I still think that Spurs' best performance of the season was that half hour at West Ham before Bentancur got crocked, and Bentancur played there. So I feel like if Emerson is playing, then we don't need Sarr, and that's harsh on Sarr because he's played very well for Spurs this season. But it's Palace at home. We need to score. I'm more worried about Spurs scoring, weirdly, this time around than I am about us conceding.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Jack, what would be flat cap? Sorry, what would be your midfield 3 tomorrow?
HG did kind of convince me a bit there that as much as Pop Matsar has probably been in my opinion, our most consistent midfielder and like hasn't really done a whole lot wrong at all really this season, I'd kind of agree with that on a tactical level. Like what he brings for us that very few other players have brought on a consistent level. Like, do we really actually need that going into this game? Like what he brings and his industrious nature and covering as well as making unselfish runs, all that sort of thing. Maybe you do think of like Lo Celso, Maddison, Bissouma, or you could think about Bentancur as a number 8 if he's going to make runs inside the penalty area because he is good in the air. We know that he can kind of, pop up with a goal in that sort of department. But I'd agree with HG. I'd think about potentially moving Sarr out. Originally, like just this morning when speaking to the other Dave Harris, I was saying put Sarr in there, but I'm actually a bit convinced after that. I'd think about a change maybe there just to try something different, add a bit more creativity. So maybe just to go for it, Bissouma, Lo Celso, Maddison, or Bissouma, Bentancur, Maddison, just as a change. I'd keep Kulusevski on the right wing though, personally.
Okay, good segue into the front 3. Obviously, we've heard today that Richarlison is up for between 2 and 4 weeks with a knee injury. Are we expecting Son to play central, or maybe Werner on the left? Anyone disagree with that?
That's what I'm expecting. I don't want it.
What would you like, HG?
I'd want Brian to play, but I've said that from day one, and he's not going to do it. I know that, right? Like, basically, we loaned Werner so that Brian wouldn't ever have to play. That's pretty much the reasoning for it. So it's a shame, but I want wingers who actually hug the touchline. Like Johnson doesn't do it, and he doesn't try to do it. Kulusevski at least provides something, because even though he is all left foot, he does hug the touchline. You need space. You need space for those midfield players to play, and I don't think Werner. He's not convinced me. I mean, I've never been convinced by him. He's not been terrible for Spurs, but it's a weird one. Like if you've got a doggy moving forward from the back who likes to make those kind of underlapping, is that a word? I don't know. You've got
it is now.
Underlap. He makes those runs kind of in between the winger and the number 9. He doesn't want to go around the outside. So fine, keep Brian on the outside and just provide that width at all times. The last thing we want to do is be narrow. So I know what I want to see won't happen, and I expect it to be Werner, Son, and Kulusevski. But I think we'll face the same problem that we had against Wolves if we do that.
So, Jack Hoyle, we've only ever seen Maddison playing on the left of that midfield 3. With Porro being out, and we know Emerson is a more defensive player, is there an argument that if Sarr's going to play, he should play on the left to cover Udogie, and maybe Maddison can play on the right and he can whip some balls in as well with his lovely right foot?
I mean, yes, theoretically, I see what you mean. You wouldn't think it would make a huge difference to switch someone from the right side to the left side, but it is somewhat it has not been done all season. Sarr's been in that same spot consistently, and covering for that same type of situation. It makes sense that you do that. You could also, have a bit of a back three. When Jose used to only play Oria up and kind of move to a back three in possession, you can do a little bit of that because that would give you some cover as well. And not that I want to see a back three in actual formation, but if one is going to go up high, you could slide Mickey over a little bit and bring Emerson back, and that way you keep your eights higher up the pitch, which is really probably what I'd want. So I don't know about switching Sarr. I mean, they had enough time to play around with it. They should have had enough training pitch time to kind of think about this. But I would expect not to see that kind of flip. I would think Madison will still stay on the left, and whoever plays on the right, if it's Sarr, he'll play on the right.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you can switch Madison over for this idea that as a right-footed player, like he might combine with Kulusevski and offer something different. But if you were to do that, then you'd bring in a left-sided midfielder to play where Madison usually does. And again, like you could choose that to be Kulusevski if you want. You could choose that to be Lo Celso if you want. Again, I think it's pretty clear what the pecking order is at Spurs. Like Lo Celso's not going to get minutes unless others are injured, right? Brian Hill's not going to get minutes unless the fans are injured by this point. So it's kind of like we know that the choices are up front. Is it going to be Johnson or Kulusevski down the right? That's the choice. Werner will play down the left. Madison will play where he always does, and yeah, Bentancur or Sarr in that right-sided 8 position. As much as I think that the squad might have better options to provide a better team, and again, that's not to say that I think Brian Hill is the best player on Spurs' staff. He clearly isn't. I just think that if you want to find a functioning 11, right now we kind of need people that want to hug the touchline and can provide a decent cross. And I don't see that with Werner. I could see it more with Son, but Son's now going to have to play central because Richarlison is out.
Is there a slight chance that because of what you just described, like Werner doesn't have a left foot and doesn't have a left-footed cross whatsoever, whereas Sonny does at the end of the day? Could you think about just putting then Werner down the middle and sacrifice, the fact that, yes, we won't have a better striker down the middle, but at least we'll have a player who will be on the ball in Sonny on the left wing, who will be on the ball a lot and will at least be a better player when we have to give him the ball instead of just giving it to Werner, who would struggle to create.
If I was to see that, then I would be tempted to have Kulusevski as like the centre forward / false nine, whatever you want to call it, because we know he can hold the ball up. And yeah, that means that Johnson would play on the right, and like you'd find a way to do it. But like to me, Werner is best when he doesn't have to think. Right? He's always been like that. He's not a great player if you give him time. You allow him space to move it into, then okay, he might do something, but he's not in. Like everything about him is instinct. Yeah. And I just don't know. Like if Son is getting the crosses in, or Doggy is getting to the byline, like we see the goal that Richarlison scored at Everton, you don't need to be a great. I mean, that was a good finish. Like he just found a gap and hit it first time, and it went in. So Werner could maybe do that, but I don't think Werner's going to stay past the season. I don't think Brian's going to stay past the season. So if you wanted to go with players that might be around next year, then you'd probably move Kulusevski into the middle and have Son on the left and Johnson on the right. Like we do have choices. I just think it's finding the best combination rather than the best players that Ange has played all season. Like what will work against this Palace side that again will have 3 centre backs most likely, and so like Werner to me would just get swallowed up in that. Kulusevski might not, but Werner probably would. I think you might be on mute, John. Can anyone else hear him? I can't hear him.
No, I can't hear him.
Sorry, my fault. Ali's talking about guys. You're talking about players swinging the ball in, but who they're going to swing it into with Richie out. It's a fair point. It's going to have to be intricate through the line stuff, probably, or crossing low.
Well, yeah, I mean, Son had plenty of goals playing through the middle in the beginning of the season. I mean, you can swing them in, on the floor, and or you can get the cutback from, like you're saying, somebody getting to the byline, which we certainly don't do enough of, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, you can. It doesn't have to be something in the air, and that's true. We're not going to be getting any heavy goals unless a defender clears it and it hits off of one of our players' heads and goes in the goal. So,
yeah. Okay. So Opta match prediction is 56.5% for Spurs, 18.5% for Palace. So what's that going to be? Is that 75%? So 25% draw. What are we thinking, boys? We'll go home win?
Spurs have to win. I'm going to say they win. I'm going to say they win. They just have to. If they don't, then I'd say kiss our top 4 hopes goodbye. Just as like us being serious, like sure, like maybe we go on a winning streak later or something. But if we really want to, as a fan base, be in any way like actually confident of us as a top 4 contender this season, I think we have to win this game. So yeah, I'm willing them to win. I'm willing them to win.
And it's tough because, although we've won a number of home games, like the Brentford one was a very short-term burst that won us the game. The Brighton one was the last minute. But yeah, like I agree. Like I think we'll have enough. Like if we get ahead of steam going, we will beat Palace. But the crowd need to be on it from the first minute. They can't go in there expecting Spurs to win, which I feel like because of some of the attacking football we've played, people have now started to expect this. We have to think that Palace are a tough nut to crack, and the players, need kind of encouraging to make those runs and to build up that head of steam, because otherwise you'll just see side-to-side football, which is what we saw against Wolves, where we just never really tried to penetrate what there was in front of us. We have to make runs. We have to go for it. We have to engage the opposition and engage our own fans, because if we don't, it'll be a quiet afternoon, and then tension will rise and stray passes will get booed, and everything just gets worse from there.
Yeah. Jack Hoyle, what are you going for?
Yeah, so I think I'm not going to predict anything other than a Spurs win, because it doesn't seem, again, we don't lose to Palace, rarely even draw them. I think the key here, since we weren't happy with our frontline options before Richie got hurt. We're not happy now that he is hurt, that's for sure. There are problems no matter who you put on the wings, because we just don't have the wingers that the system really needs. So, your point about the width is a problem, because I can't tell you how many times in these games where we're playing between the penalty, it's like the penalty area lines are our sidelines. We're not using that extra space at all, and I don't know that will change tomorrow. But so for me, the person who's going to have to make this happen is Maddison. He's going to have to come up with a huge game. We're going to have to get him in space so that he can thread the passes that are going to be necessary, particularly to Son, because I don't have a lot of confidence in us just racking up lots of goals. That just doesn't seem to be in the cards for tomorrow, especially with Porro out, because again, that's our second most creative option on the field, not available.
Okay. HG, who's the left quick winger at Dortmund? Or Jack?
I think it might be a certain Jadon Sancho that maybe he's referring to.
Oh,
or
okay, right.
Could be, there's also Julian Brandt, or the other English guy. Something, he has like a hyphenated name.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You're muted, HG.
I think it's like Bino something.
Yeah, Bino Gittins. Yeah.
Bino Gittins. Yeah. One of those three, I'm assuming. Take your pick. Probably Sancho. I'm assuming he's being a bit clever.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So, weekend fixtures. Let's have a look. So we'll go through us. I think my family might be home quite soon, so I will hand over to you guys at that point, and I'll see if I can get back before the end of the show. Brentford, Chelsea. Brentford in a poor run of form. Chelsea need to get over the cup final. Can't really score a goal. West London derby. Ooh, tough one. I'm going to go for Tony to score here. I'm going to go 3-2 to Brentford. I'm going to go Brave. Jack Hoyle.
Yeah, this has got draw written all over it, and a very I could see 0-0 or 1-1 in this is just as boring a watch as you can imagine.
I could see a draw or a Brentford win. I'd be surprised if Chelsea did win this one, just because obviously this means a lot to Brentford, and they do need points. So you'd probably figure they're going into this game with a lot of enthusiasm. So either a draw or a win for Brentford.
I'm looking at that and thinking there are 6 3:00 games tomorrow. I need to check my TV listening to make sure Spurs are on. I hope we are, but yeah.
They're on. Glasner's there.
Yeah, I mean, they should be on because Glasner's there, but still, I'm nervous now because who knows what they might do. 1-1. Brentford Chelsea looks a boring 1-1 all day long. I'm with Jack Hoyle on this. I think both teams will score. Both teams will be happy / not happy. It's got like Game 7 on Match of the Day written all over it.
Okay. Everton West Ham. Oh, gosh. 1-0 win for Everton. Jack.
Yeah, I mean this is also a game that I have no interest in watching. Even if I would find something else to do. This has got a 0-0, 1-1, 1-0 written all over it, and not terribly interesting to watch. I mean, there's some games that are fantastic 0-0s, and this is not going to be one of them. So, Everton at home, they need points. Yeah, I lean towards them getting it here. West Ham. If Paqueta's back, that makes them much harder to play. But I'll back Everton in a boring contest.
I think West Ham are a lot better with Paqueta, and they have more of a chance of scoring goals. Everton play well in the majority of games they play. They just have two pretty incompetent forwards up top with Calvert-Lewin and Beto. And so I kind of feel bad for Dyche. I feel like actually Everton might lose this game, probably despite playing well, like they usually have been.
Yeah, look, I want to, like, it's like Dyche versus Moyes. I mean, who is really going to watch this game?
The purists of the get it launched. The purists of the get it launched.
It's totally going to be like 5-4 now. But yeah, I think Everton will win 2-1. I think no one really cares how West Ham do. They've got one eye on the Europa League anyway. And Everton need the points, and Moyes likes Everton. There's too much there to make you say, okay, Everton are going to get something from this. The 2-1 Everton.
Okay, Fulham, Brighton. Ooh, interesting one. Brighton are very up and down, aren't they? And Fulham seem to be getting the odd result. I'm going to go Brighton 2-0.
Again, this is a completely unpredictable game for me because I just don't know who's coming for Brighton, how they're going to play. But Brighton are the better side playing away. I'll take I don't feel like there's just a lot of draws in the weekend here. I might even look at a 2-2 here.
I'd take a Brighton win personally. I think Fulham are just so inconsistent that I could see them losing this, whereas Brighton slightly less so.
I love the Fulham badge because I always think it should say FFS. But yeah, I go like it's one of those games you would not put any money on because it could end 3-0 Fulham, 3-0 Brighton. Like literally anything is possible. And so for that reason, I will go Fulham because I keep on betting against them. They get results. So Fulham will win 2-0.
Okay. Newcastle Wolves. After Wolves did us, they'll probably end up losing to Newcastle.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you could see Wolves doing to Newcastle what they did to us, beating them on the counter. Tricky one. I can see this being a 2-1 either way. I'm not sure which way. I'll go Brave. Let's go Wolves.
All right. Yeah, I'll take the other side of the Newcastle 2-1.
I'll go Wolves again because they seem to take kind of the bigger games pretty well, and they seem to do quite well against the bigger sides this season. So I'm going to go Wolves, and I think Newcastle have a lot of injuries. Wolves do too, but I'm going to go Wolves. Gary O'Neill is a great manager.
Just before you interrupt, actually, so I'm going to have to shoot. I'm trying it back before the end of the show. Jack, if you're okay to take the helm.
Yeah.
Cool. Cheers.
Dare I say, actually, quick question. Is Gary O'Neill, could he be in contention as the best current England manager?
Yeah, very much so.
I'd say there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
between him and Eddie Howe, easily.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah, and Eddie Howe's getting a lot of stick when they've had a lot of games and a lot of injuries, and they're still, 7th? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not having a bad season, really, Newcastle, considering.
No.
But yeah, I guess the winner of that is Southgate's successor, right? That's the England successor derby. Newcastle at home, if their fans are up for it, I always go for Newcastle, but I don't think they've got a striker worthy of the name really right now. Is Isaac injured? I think Wilson's injured. Who else do they have? Chris Wood? I don't know. Chris Wood's not there anymore. He's at Forest. So, yeah, 1-1.
Yeah. So if you're going to draw, we got a couple 2-1s one way or another, and another Wolves win for for there. All right. So Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. I don't know. Do we need to spend a lot of time here? Is there really much chance that that we're going to see anything other than 3 points going to the visitors here, Jack?
Nuno masterclass would be fun, but I don't see it happening. Liverpool do have a lot of injuries, though, but I do see them winning. But they do have a lot of injuries.
HE, a draw possible for Forest? Can they get what playing against Liverpool Academy? Yeah, I mean, Forest can get what. I mean, I think Forest could get all three really if they wanted to. Salah's not fit yet. They keep it tight. They might nick a goal. They've beaten decent teams playing that way. They were unlucky against Man United in the week, who aren't decent, but still. However, I am just praying that Liverpool keep on winning, just to help the odds that Arsenal don't. So I will predict that Forest will win because I know I am always wrong. Liverpool, please get it over the line.
We didn't do a formal prediction on a Spurs match, but I guess we can do it here. You know, I have no idea what's going to happen, of course, but I'm going to pray for our first clean sheet and forever and take 2-0, that we with a 1-0 game, we get one late as they're pressing and we get 2-0 out of it. That's what I'm going to hope. I return to the form that we saw in the first 10, maybe. Jack?
This is more out of hope than expectation. I just feel like this team, like I said, if they want to take themselves seriously, and also after what was a bad defeat to Wolves, you'd think that they would come out of the gates quite quickly and quite fast and look to try to win this game convincingly. And this team seems to be together. They care about each other. If this is all true, then you hope that they would come out and have a convincing performance. So I'm going to actually go for a 2-0 or a 3-0, just because of that. It's more out of hope than really expecting or really seeing that happen. But I'm going to go for, I'll just say 3-0, whatever.
Palace will find a way to score. I don't even know how they will, but somehow they will.
It'll be from a corner, HG. You didn't see the slide earlier in the show. It's going to be from a corner.
An own goal from a corner, knowing Spurs. Van der Ven's not scored an own goal in a while. My first instinct was 2-0, kind of boring. We get a couple of goals and the game's forgotten very quickly. And then I got excited by Jack's like, we're going to go out there and wipe the floor with them and attack, and someone's going to get a whooping. A nervy 3-1. It'll be 2-1 for a while probably, but a nervy 3-1. This is Spurs. We don't do anything but nervy.
So I'm going to put on the very big match. Obviously, Luton desperate for points hosting Aston Villa. I actually think Luton gets a draw out of this. I think this is a 1-1 draw for Luton.
This is one of those where I like Aston Villa are so funny whenever I watch them, because they have games where they are like devastating and really can just blow over teams. But that high line, it's sort of like ours, where there are games where they really do get exploited and they can end up conceding like an early goal or even an early 2 goals, like in certain times. So Luton Town seemed like one of those teams that could easily do that, could easily catch them out with like an early punch in the mouth kind of thing. And from there, you never know how the game can go. So I'm going to say I agree with you, like a Luton Town draw or win. And that's also out of hope, because it'd be really great for us if that happened.
I think Villa will somehow scrape it. Like I'm preparing myself for the worst with most of these, if I'm honest. Like whatever I don't want to happen is what I'm telling myself will happen. But Luton have played a load of games at home. They played really well at home against a bunch of teams, and they've lost almost every single one against a good side. Even Arsenal got 96
late minute winners.
They got their winner in the 99th of 6 added time, stoppage time. Yeah,
they keep it close, but they always lose. That's right, Luton Town. Right,
Luton will play well. Everyone will think they've got some really good players, and they've got some players that no one's ever heard of until they got to the Premier League. I mean, that's the thing. I look at their back three every week, and I'm like, where have you come from? Whose academies were you in at some point? I have no idea about any of these players, and yet they're all pretty decent. But yeah, like you, as a Spurs fan, I'm sitting there thinking Villa are going to win, because that's exactly what I don't want.
Yeah, there are a couple on that Luton side that I wouldn't mind seeing at Spurs next summer. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our bench could be significantly enhanced with some of those players that they've got, particularly at fullback. So these are the Sunday matches. Burnley, Bournemouth, couldn't care less. I mean, seriously, I don't know what you'd have to pay me to watch this match. Burnley will lose 2-1 to Bournemouth. Jack?
I like Iraola, and I think he's shown to be a good manager. Vincent Kompany, I am so glad we dodged that bullet when we were looking at him, because he really has unconvinced me this summer. He's just been really probably the worst manager, I'd say, in the Premier League this season, easily. It's just I have no idea even how Burnley aren't even playing like the progressive style that they were trying to in the beginning of the season. Like, I don't even know what they are anymore. So yeah, Bournemouth win. They should win convincingly.
Yeah, I will make sure I'm not home in church in time to watch that one on Sunday. 0-0 all the way. It'll be a game that time will hopefully never forget. I mean, we'll always. Yeah. I have no interest whatsoever in that.
This is one of those where you scream, avoid, avoid. But the game that we will be watching on Sunday, hopefully very, very, very happily watching, will be as the Citizens host United. I think the question that we just need to pass around here is, by how many? You've got no Højlund. You still got injuries in the back line. You could, the Slabhead is still going to be in the back, I guess. I don't know if Varane's back. I don't know who's going to be playing in midfield with Manu, but I don't see this shaping up too well for United. I'm going to take City. I think they'll concede because it's a derby, but I'd say it's 3-1, 4-1 without much effort.
I felt that way in the last time and I actually got it right. The last time that Man City played Man United, I did predict to slaughter both kind of in my fantasy team. I triple captained Haaland in that game. Really worked out for me. And even on like various bets and things really worked out. I actually don't see that happening nearly as convincingly, just for some random reason. I feel like Man United will look to defend really deep, look to make this as, uneventful as possible. And Man City will, I think they will win, but I don't see them winning by 3-4 goals like they did last time, because Man United of recent have been better defensively. So I just don't see it happening.
So have I now talked myself into the fact that Liverpool won't win, Man City won't win, and that last game will end up being a massive away win? Yeah, that's what we don't want to see. Like Man United are rubbish. Like, their best 11 is decent, but a couple of injuries and they are terrible. Outplayed by Fulham last week. Fulham should have won by a country mile. I don't see Man City being any worse than Fulham were last week, and they've clearly got better players. And crucially, I think Man City have Champions League in the midweek, but they're 3-1 up from the first leg. So they don't
they are. Yeah,
the Champions League game either. So you suspect that their better players will play against Man United, and whatever they did against Luton in the week, they'll just continue doing it against Man United. So yeah, 3 or 4. Maybe United will get 1, but I do think City will win quite easily.
Yeah, let's hope that you're right and Jack is wrong. So I'm not bothering to call the Arsenal Sheffield game. I think that's a waste of our showtime.
Yep.
Because I know everyone knows what's going to happen there. This was obviously the news out this week that, again, we're having another surgery for Ryan Sessegnon, who I know no one on the show or in the audience, rates particularly, but I feel for a guy who just can't seem to get, his career back on track. I'm not going to get all over him being a wage thief. It is what it is, but he had surgery again. So I think I would assume that we've seen the last Sessegnon in a Spurs uniform. Somehow this summer they're going to work out something where he can go play somewhere else if he can play at all. Would that be your thought, HG?
Like, I just think that, I'm 46 this year, right? I do not look like someone who plays football. I have probably never looked like anyone who's played football. And I think my body could handle more than Sessegnon seems to right now. The fact his hamstring went in his first I guess game back. I mean, he's played a few minutes for the first team and then was out again for a few. But it's really, really sad that he just seems to handle training only. He's like the reverse Ledley King. Ledley King couldn't train but would play on match days every week and play really well. And Sessegnon is the other way around. Like, he just can't ever seem to get fit enough to train, and it is sad. But both legs now. It does make you wonder. Like I don't know if we'll find a solution for him in the summer, but I think that it's got to be heartbreaking for him to do the same thing and just rehab for what has it been now?
2 years.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of
years.
time. So fingers crossed it does work for him, and the surgery. I mean, it appears the surgery did help the left hamstring, so let's hope it helps the right one.
Yeah, and maybe he can get back to playing for a side that he can actually help, because that's not going to be Spurs. This is something I threw around in our chat groups, and I'm going to throw it out to those 89 of you who are watching, who have also, not all of you have hit smash the like button. So please hit that like button. This was put out on Twitter, and this is going to be a season where every single match that we play all year is going to be against a Premier League side. Obviously, because we're not in Europe, and we got knocked out of the cups, and all of those games were against Premier League sides. And trying to ask anyone can think of the last time never played a team from another division throughout the entire season. I couldn't come up with it. I don't know if you do, HG. Have you come up with it yet?
No, I can't. I mean, the ones I could think of, like every Spurs fan remembers the year that we got the Champions League, but we were knocked out of the cups in the first round of both competitions. But apparently, as John said, they weren't against Premier League teams. So I can't imagine it's ever happened before. Although I will say this, I'm not that interested that it's happening now either. Like, okay, it's just one of those things.
Yeah,
we got tough draws. We knew we got tough draws. Fulham away was not easy. I sat on this show and said anyone but that. It was the hardest draw we could have got.
Yeah.
Right? Like, of all the teams in the Premier League that were in that round,
yeah,
they were the hardest team, and we got them away from home. It was the hardest draw we could have got. Burnley's not a great draw, and City at home is not a great draw. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we should count ourselves lucky we did win the Burnley game, because it's just, hopefully next year we'll get better draws than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is getting back. A lot of people are talking about. We spent a lot of time figuring out whether or not we're going to collect enough points to get to the Champions League, because obviously that's going to be important for attracting players and having budget for Ange in the summer to buy players. This is where we currently sit. England, I say we, but England remains third in this, and there's a lot of football still to be played. I still keep seeing people touting England to get to one of those first two spots, but there's going to have to be a lot of wins by teams that we usually root against.
It's kind of like those sneaky, if I'm guessing, it's the sneaky wins by Roma in the Conference League, and then making it to the Europa League final successively. Also, too, Fiorentina making it to a final, Inter Milan making it to a final, AC Milan going very, very far as well. Like, they've just had teams go very far into competitions. Same thing with Germany when you think of Frankfurt, and we think of other sides as well. Like, even I think Freiburg have a good chance of going far into the Conference League. So it's funny, like, what the other leagues have done better is just going further into the competitions, like than what England have done.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we need to do. It sounds stupid and sounds simple, but yeah, go further into the competitions that you're in. You would get a better coefficient. It's not all the Champions League. It's not all based off that, clearly, because the only reason Italy would be where they are, it wouldn't be without that Roma final and that, win as well, and it wouldn't be for Fiorentina and some of the other clubs that have gone very far for them. So it's a whole accumulation. Clearly.
Well, this is the keys. You've got Brighton playing an Italian side in Roma. You got West Ham playing a German side. You need to be rooting for Brighton and West Ham to get through those, because you're going to need to accumulate those points, because this is all calculated. I think on this season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. It's definitely England are in matchups that can probably get in front of them, but you lose those. West Ham come home and Brighton don't get through, then it's going to be even harder. So I think that even emphasizes even more why people assuming the fifth spot's getting the Champions League. It's far from a certain. and really you can know in the next couple of weeks where people stand.
Yeah, and I think, like, obviously we had a full round of the Europa League and the Conference League, and we've had the first legs of the Champions League. But I think before that last round, England were closer to Germany than they are now. I think the Germans, for whatever reasons, they got enough results to go further ahead. So yeah, like, I think Italy are gone. I don't think we'll catch them, right? So it is that West Ham Freiburg game will be massive. Because not only do you want to beat them, it then knocks them out and stops them getting points later on. That may well be it. That may well be the key tie of it. Like Brighton versus Roma, obviously it would help if Brighton go through. But, Arsenal, they lost at Porto. That didn't help. I mean, it's all those little things. I don't want to. I'm not going to cheer for Arsenal. I would rather see Spurs in the Europa than cheer for Arsenal. That just feels so alien. But yeah, I think it's gonna. I think it was all kind of dependent on the Man United Newcastle not getting points and going out before Christmas. It's you have to stay in the competition for as long as possible, and English teams just haven't done that.
Be fun to see Czechia overtake Spain, and given more Champions League spots, because that'd be, and also then you get to see an Atletico or probably a Barcelona be without Champions League football, which would be interesting for future seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we won't get into that. They've got, there's so many clubs that have financial issues.
But it is kind of ironic that, like, if Spurs were to finish fifth, or even Villa, I mean, actually more so Spurs because we're not in Europe and Villa are, but like if Spurs get to fifth and only get there because the other teams that had more games and so therefore were stretched further and probably couldn't finish higher up in the Premier League because they had all those European games that they thankfully won, allowed Spurs to make it. It's always like this kind of, like, we benefited from the fact the other teams had to play and win those games and we get fifth. Like, at least if it was Villa that finished fifth, they could sit there and be like, okay, we finished fifth because we won the Conference League or because we helped the coefficient score. For Spurs, it is all just gifts. It's free. It's free for us, but I guess that's the system, and they'll stick with it. But it is a weird thing that Spurs could literally benefit just because other teams had more games to play, and you could say that for both competitions.
Yeah, it's true, and that's why I still feel like fifth is the most likely landing spot when all's said and done. I just don't know if we could put enough of a run to overtake Villa, but obviously. We'll see what happens. I'm still betting on fifth, and if they're going to get in Champions League, it's going to be because England does well going forward. And like you're saying, particularly the West Ham Freiburg match. That's a good point. I didn't really the gap to Italy. I wasn't really even counting what it would take to get there. You'd almost have to have a run. All the Italian clubs would have to come out in this next round, almost. I would think. Yeah, good point. All right. Well, at this point, I think we've got 89 watching. I appreciate everyone. I don't think we have any more impactful information to bring to you guys. We've got a match tomorrow here in the United States. Jack and I will be watching at 10 a.m. That's a 4 o'clock start for you, I guess. Did you find out if it's on TV, HD?
I haven't yet, but like John's right. Like Glasner, every Palace game should be on, at least until the end of the season. Like it's big news here. Like Hasenhüttl for some reason didn't have that same. Because I don't know why. It's not as if he came from nowhere, but for suddenly, like Glasner now, it's this big deal. So, hopefully Palace are on, but please, because I don't want to have to go to the pub. I like watching it at home in my underwear. I'm one of those guys now. But, it should be good.
That's what happens. I will not be watching it at a pub, and I won't even be able to get to see the second half if I have a noon game myself. So if it's still played even after a downpour that we get tonight, I will miss the second half, and it's streaming here on Peacock, which means no recording. So I will have to just. It is what it is, and hopefully I won't be too disappointed when I check my phone at the end of my match. Jack, thanks for coming in from our grand Big Apple up there. I thank you for joining the show. It's always good to have you on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure as always. Enjoyed giving the preview and nice Friday night casual chat. Appreciate it.
Well, and as I forgot that I am the one who's doing the outtake, I will have to get that ready to go. But anyway, before we say sign off, don't forget we've got our Patreon group that you see at the bottom of the scroll here of the window. It's £3 a month. We haven't increased prices, so that basically makes it £2 a month in inflation adjusted dollars since we started. I would say you get all this great merch like this shirt and my mug is back there, and we've got ticket shares, we've got chat rooms going 24/7 on a global basis. So come into the cheese room, and we're also always looking to have patrons who want to join our shows. We often have guests from the Patreon group. That's how most of us got started in joining these shows, is just getting asked to come on as a guest and then really liking it. So feel free to join, and the fun on YouTube as well. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and remember everyone, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.